The Obsidian Seminar of Avelmere College. Avelmere College stood at the farthest edge of the university grounds, separated from the newer faculties by a wrought iron gate that few students ever noticed. Its towers were narrow and angular, their slate roofs steep as folded wings, and its stone facade bore the patina of centuries of rain and restrained ambition. Unlike the modern buildings of glass and steel, Avelmere seemed to resist light. Even at noon, its corridors held a subdued twilight, as though the sun paused at its thresholds out of courtesy. Those who studied there often claimed that the air itself felt older, threaded with the faint perfume of ink, dust, and extinguished candles. Rowan Alder arrived at Avelmere in late autumn, carrying a portfolio bound with twine and a letter sealed in dark green wax. He had been awarded a research residency in comparative metaphysics, an honor so rare that even the dean had raised a skeptical brow. Rowan's proposal concerned a little documented academic circle known as the Obsidian Seminar, rumored to have convened within Avelmere during the 19th century. Their members were said to pursue questions too abstract for public lectures. Whether thought precedes language, whether memory can exist independent of mind, whether architecture can influence cognition. The official archives contained only fragments, meeting minutes ending abruptly, references to a chamber sealed for contemplative reasons, and a final note declaring the seminar concluded without explanation. The gate creaked open at Rowan's approach. He paused to regard the courtyard beyond, a rectangular expanse paved in black stone, its center occupied by a dry reflecting pool shaped like an octagon. Around it rose cloistered walkways supported by slender columns. Above, stained glass windows in muted sapphire and amber hues caught the waning afternoon light. The scene possessed an austere beauty that stirred both admiration and unease. Professor Lucian Voss, head of Avelmere's Department of Antiquarian Studies, greeted Rowan at the main entrance. Voss's presence was as composed as the architecture itself. His coat was impeccably tailored, his dark hair streaked lightly with silver, his expression reserved yet perceptive. "Avelmere does not attract casual curiosity," he remarked as they entered the vaulted foyer. "Its questions require patience." "I am patient," Rowan replied, though he felt the weight of the building pressing upon him. The foyer opened into a central rotunda crowned by a glass dome veiled with soot from centuries of candle smoke. The floor mosaic depicted a compass rose encircled by Latin aphorisms. Bookshelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling, interrupted only by narrow spiral staircases that vanished upward into shadow. Lamps with emerald shades cast pools of concentrated light upon polished desks. The atmosphere was neither welcoming nor hostile. It was expectant. Rowan was assigned a chamber overlooking the inner cloister. From his window, he could see the octagonal pool below, its stone basin reflecting the sky's dimming blue. As evening descended, he began cataloging the documents provided by Professor Voss. Most were mundane: attendance lists, expense ledgers, lecture announcements. Yet, tucked within a leather folio, he discovered a diagram of Avelmere's substructure, a network of rooms beneath the college, including one labeled Aula Obscura. The chamber had no recorded purpose. The following days unfolded with measured routine. Rowan attended lectures on arcane linguistics and symbolic architecture. He dined in the refectory beneath portraits of former scholars whose faces were rendered in stern oils, their gazes following diners with quiet scrutiny. At precisely 11 each night, the great clock above the rotunda chimed and then fell silent, though Rowan sensed that activity continued somewhere beyond the audible. On the fourth evening, compelled by curiosity, he descended a narrow staircase near the east wing. The stone steps were worn smooth by long use. At their base, he encountered a corridor lined with alcoves containing busts of philosophers. The busts' features were partially obscured by shadow, giving them an almost animate quality. At the corridor's end stood a heavy oak door bound with iron straps. Carved into its surface was a symbol Rowan recognized from the folio, a circle intersected by a diagonal line, as though bisected by thought itself. The door yielded to his touch. Within lay the Aula Obscura. The chamber was circular, its ceiling forming a low dome supported by ribs of dark stone. At its center stood a long table of polished obsidian, reflecting the faint light emitted by wall sconces. Around the table were 12 high-backed chairs, their velvet upholstery faded to charcoal. The air felt unusually still, as though undisturbed by time. Rowan stepped forward, fingertips grazing the table's surface. Warning flickered at the edge of his awareness, yet fascination outweighed caution. Upon the table rested a single ledger bound in midnight blue leather. Its spine bore no title. He opened it. The first pages contained meticulous notes on the seminar's founding principles. They posited that certain spaces, when constructed according to specific ratios and materials, could intensify intellectual communion. The Aula Obscura had been designed as an amplifier, not of sound, but of contemplation. Ideas shared within it, the seminar believed, acquired resonance beyond ordinary discourse. As Rowan read, a subtle vibration seemed to hum beneath his palms. He closed the ledger and listened. Silence prevailed, yet the sensation persisted, like the echo of a thought not entirely his own. Few are invited here unaccompanied. Professor Voss's voice emerged from the doorway. His tone carried neither anger nor surprise. "I found the diagram," Rowan replied evenly. "Surely you anticipated that." Voss inclined his head. "Anticipation differs from permission." He entered the chamber, his footsteps muted against the stone. The Obsidian seminar disbanded publicly, but its inquiries continued in quieter forms. We do not conceal knowledge from scholars prepared to approach it responsibly. We conceal it from haste. Rowan gestured toward the ledger. This chamber was designed to shape thought. Not shape, Voss corrected softly. Concentrate. He explained that the seminar had pursued a radical thesis, that collective contemplation within a harmonized space could generate insights unattainable individually. The architecture of the aula obscura functioned as an instrument, tuning the minds within it to a shared frequency. Yet such resonance carried risk. Intense alignment might blur personal boundaries, leaving participants uncertain where one intellect ended and another began. Rowan absorbed the explanation with academic composure, though his pulse quickened. And you continue these sessions? On occasion, Voss said, when the matter under study warrants amplification. An invitation hung unspoken between them. That night at 11 precisely, Rowan returned to the aula obscura. 12 candles burned upon the obsidian table, their flames steady despite the absence of draught. Faculty members he had glimpsed only in passing took their seats, their expressions solemn yet composed. No faces appeared sinister. Rather, they bore the intensity of scholars confronting profound uncertainty. Voss began the session with the question, does knowledge exist independent of its knower? The discussion unfolded in measured cadence. Voices remained low, deliberate. As arguments intersected, Rowan felt the chamber respond. The obsidian surface seemed to deepen in sheen, reflecting not merely candlelight, but a subtle luminescence. The walls absorbed and returned their words with uncanny clarity. Ideas interlocked with precision, forming patterns Rowan sensed rather than fully grasped. Time dissolved. When the candles guttered low, Voss concluded the session with a nod. Participants departed without flourish, leaving Rowan alone in the chamber. He realized with a start that the clock had not chimed midnight. Over subsequent nights, he attended additional gatherings, each focused on a singular thesis, memory without narrative, perception without sight, ethics without witness. The resonance intensified. Rowan began experiencing moments of shared intuition, anticipating colleagues' conclusions before they voiced them. Far from alarming him, the phenomenon exhilarated. It was as though the chamber refined thought into its purest alloy. Yet subtle anomalies emerged. During solitary study in his chamber, Rowan sometimes perceived faint murmurs beneath the silence. Not voices precisely, but the suggestion of dialogue continuing beyond physical presence. In the courtyard, the dry reflecting pool occasionally shimmered as though filled with dark water, though upon inspection it remained stone. He questioned whether these impressions stemmed from fatigue or from the seminar's concentrated influence. One evening, Rowan confronted Voss in the rotunda. "The resonance extends beyond the chamber," he said. Voss regarded him thoughtfully. "Amplification leaves traces. The mind, once attuned, does not easily revert." "And the risk you mentioned?" "Is precisely that," Voss replied. "Boundary erosion. We safeguard against it by maintaining distinct scholarship outside the aula obscura. Balance prevents dissolution." Rowan pondered the warning, yet found himself unwilling to withdraw. The insights gleaned within the chamber were unparalleled. His notes expanded into a thesis exploring collective cognition as architectural phenomenon. He theorized that Avelmere itself functioned as a broader instrument, its corridors and cloisters subtly guiding intellectual currents. As winter settled over the college, snow gathered along the parapets and softened the courtyard's geometry. Within the aula obscura, sessions grew more infrequent, yet more potent. One gathering addressed the concept of academic immortality, the persistence of thought through citation and preservation. As debate intensified, Rowan experienced a moment of profound clarity. Ideas did not merely endure through texts. They endured through minds synchronized across generations. The chamber served remembrance as much as revelation. After that session, he lingered alone. Placing his hands upon the obsidian table, he felt the faint hum return. Rather than resisting, he centered himself within it. The sensation resolved into coherence, an awareness of countless scholars who had once sat in those chairs, their inquiries layered like sediment. Not haunting, but continuity. A presence at the doorway drew his attention. Voss stood there, expression softened by approval. "You understand now," he said. "It is not possession," Rowan replied quietly. "It is stewardship." Voss inclined his head. "Precisely." The following week, Voss announced his impending retirement from formal duties. "Avelmere requires a custodian attuned to its instrument," he declared during the final session. "One who recognizes amplification without surrendering individuality." His gaze rested upon Rowan. The implication was unmistakable. Rowan felt both honor and gravity settle upon him. To remain at Avelmere would mean dedicating his scholarship to guiding the resonance responsibly. To depart would mean relinquishing a phenomenon few in the academic world could comprehend. On the night of his decision, Rowan walked alone through the cloisters. Snow reflected the moon's pale glow, casting the courtyard in argent light. The octagonal basin appeared once more to shimmer faintly. He descended to the aula obscura and entered without ceremony. Lighting a single candle, he opened the ledger and inscribed a new entry. "Resonance endures when guided by discernment. Architecture amplifies, conscience defines. When he emerged, dawn approached. The rotunda's dome caught the first glimmer of sun, scattering faint illumination across the compass rose mosaic. Rowan understood then that Avelmere was neither trap nor temptation. It was threshold, a place where intellect met echo and required vigilance. He chose to remain. Years passed. Scholars spoke in hushed admiration of the Obsidian seminar, revived under Rowan Alder's guidance. Sessions were rare and deliberate, their focus measured. Avelmere's reputation grew not in spectacle but in depth. The great clock continued to chime 11, and then fall silent, honoring the tradition of contemplation beyond measure. Visitors who wandered near the wrought iron gate sometimes paused, sensing an indefinable gravity within the ivy-clad walls. They saw only a venerable college devoted to study. They did not perceive the aula obscura beneath their feet, nor the obsidian table reflecting candlelight like a midnight star. Within that chamber, ideas converged and parted with disciplined grace. No shadows menaced, no voices rose in frenzy. Instead, there existed a quiet vigilance, a recognition that knowledge, when concentrated, could transform those who engaged it. And seated at the head of the table, pen poised above open pages, Rowan Alder ensured that transformation remained illumination rather than eclipse, sustaining Avelmere College as both sanctuary and instrument in the enduring pursuit of thought.